right.
Yep.
So this was back when I was trying to figure out, can we do this for free still? We cannot. But the gist is that we need to get all of these API keys out of CodeGeek accounts and into new client accounts so that billing is on them and not on us if they go over the free number of hits that these keys have. I'm not sure we've established like an exact naming convention for the client accounts, but that's probably going to vary. I think if we have habits, we should probably use those existing accounts because they'll only have to keep going up in one place. They're already logging those accounts to X, Y, and Z. So if we don't have an existing account, or they're just not willing to give us credentials for their existing account, then we need to set up a new one. And it would be something along the lines of client name dash API or APIs at gmail.com. So you just go to Gmail in like an incognito window, and it prompts you to create a new account. And I'll have some steps laid out for that, like what we should put for the birth date or things just to keep consistent if we're just doing these for API key uses only. That way, if we have to answer any questions on client accounts that we have access to, we all know what the relevant contact info should be.
So Chris, quick question. The whatever at gmail.com, does that need to be a real email account? Like they can't set it up with like a forwarding Google associated account, like accounts@codegeek.net, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, because you can't get to any sort of interface with that forwarding. And what we need to get into is either the cloud console or the developer console to manage these keys and set them up. So
okay.
I don't think forwarding accounts will work.
And they have to. Does there have to be and you're probably going to cover this, but does there have to be a billing information added there as well?
There does, yeah.
So even if the client's not willing to give us their information, we're going to create a dummy account potentially. I'm guessing this is the last resort, but we create a dummy account ourselves with Gmail, and then they would still have to go into that account and put their billing information into it.
Correct.
All right. And can I just, Katie and Jamie and myself as well, of course, it'd be good if we mute ourselves because there's a lot of background noise, so it's a little bit difficult. Only because we're recording this thing to hear Chris. So, and if you got music or something playing, Chris, just shut that off too because it's the background's kind of noisy.
Sure.
That's about it.
Okay, cool. So, like I said, I'll clean up this document and put it a little bit more step by step. But you just go through, create your new Google account, accept the terms and conditions, and then you proceed to creating a project. And actually, you don't have to create a project first. You can, well, I think you do in order to put billing information on the project itself or on the account. So this link here under creating a project actually does a lot of things just by clicking on it. It's kind of like preloading a bunch of different actions to happen in the developer's console. And I think this one was from the Jupyter theme. So what it's doing is it's going into console.developers. It uses this flows mechanism to enable the following APIs: map backend, geocoding backend, directions, distance matrix, elevation, and then some other variables that set the key up a certain way, which I'm not totally clear on what those are doing. That's the automated approach that some themes give us to create API keys. What's not great about that is that it kind of generically auto names your project and auto names the key, and it's my project API key 1, and you have no way of knowing what this is tied to. The good thing about moving things off into client accounts is that you'll know at least which client it's tied to in the future. Yeah, so let's see.
And I'm guessing the implication there is that you would not be able to then go back and change the project name.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played around too much with that. I know you can change the API key name after the fact. So if you do generate a generic one, you can rename it to whatever you want and make it really clear. But if your project name's generic, yeah, I'll see if we can change that. Okay, so there's really, it's a little confusing because there are two areas where you can manage these. You can manage them in the developer console, console.developers.google.com, or you can do it in the cloud console, which looks almost exactly the same, and it's console.cloud.google.com. You still have your project selector here, which shows you all of the projects under your account. Those things are exactly the same. The cloud console, however, is where I think you can put the billing information on via this guy right here. And link a billing account, manage a billing account. In this case, if we're in a new client Google account, we likely aren't going to see manage billing accounts. We're going to see link a billing account. And then we'll go to create billing account. And then it's a pretty straightforward step-through process of putting billing information on file. If you do this first, after you create the new account, then this one point of billing information should apply to all of the projects that you create. So that's a good order to do it in, is create the new account, go into the cloud console, add billing information, then set up your project and APIs. So just some basic info. Credit card. You can set up a bank account as well. That's an option. Some clients might want to do that just for longevity of their stuff and not having to mess with it. But you also, I think, are looking at a 10-day delay as they send test payments and withdrawals to and from your bank account that you have to confirm. So a little bit more painful, but if the client's really keen on it, maybe we offload this whole billing setup process to them.
Can you add both, or is it either or?
You can add both. It would just be multiple.
That's why I was wondering if you could do like the debit card or whatever the card is first, just have it running and then add a bank account after the fact or something like that.
Yeah, you can totally change out the payment associated with individual projects as well. And I think you can set one as primary. So yeah, that's totally possible. So yeah, and then it's pretty obviously just step through, set up the payment information, and then you can go back into the projects once that's done. And let's skip ahead a little bit and say we've already set up a project. We've already got an API key in place for it. And we want to make sure that billing information is set and applied to this particular project. So we can just go back into billing here. Manage billing accounts, my projects. And then let's do the Jupyter theme API. And we can do change billing account or disable billing. We wouldn't want to disable it. No available billing accounts. Well, that is because my account doesn't have access to CodeKeep's billing information. But when you're logged in as the individual Google account of the client, you should be able to see and manage billing information per project that's within their account. And that's where you do it from. So, yeah, any questions so far on any of that? Cool. And then just a really brief overview of the API keys and how we set them up in the new client accounts. Like I said, it's going to be different on a case-by-case basis. But like, for example, it'd be good to document as we work on some of these, like which APIs are required for common plugins or themes or things that we're using on a lot of sites, just so that we don't have to go figure it out every time. That said, if the developers are providing good documentation that's regularly updated, then we don't need to duplicate that. So kind of leave it on a case-by-case basis, I guess. But like for here, we can see ACF is using the following API keys. And the way that we would set those up for an ACF project would be, and you can do that from the developer console or the cloud console. You can do it in advance from the developer console because it doesn't really care about billing information while you're setting them up. However, if you try to start a new project, set up API keys from the cloud console, it'll basically grind you to a halt until you've got billing information on file. So that's something to note if you've got a priority of how you want to create these. Yeah, so let's go into Jupyter Theme API and look at this GWBEC Maps API key. So yeah, where does it say that? There's somewhere that you can see all of the APIs that are active on a particular key. I'm trying to find that screen. It's always very mysterious about that sort of thing. There we go. So inside of this project, if I click on dashboard, I can see all the APIs that are currently active with options to disable each one. And then I can go into the individual APIs. And yeah, nothing super helpful in there. Let's see quotas and what kind of usage they're seeing and stuff like that. But as far as if I needed to add one to this project, I could do that here in unused APIs. These are ones that are available that I'm not using. And I could click on the roads API and enable it here. And now this key can use the roads API. If I go back to overview, I should see roads in my list of, well, it was an overview. There we go. APIs. So now I've got roads in the list of in-use APIs. So this key will let me access that API as well. So for this case, it's really just a matter of turning things on and off. For other projects, there may be more specific settings that we need for the API that restrict the key to specific domains or require other sort of authentication in order to use the keys. That would all be accessed through, let's see. Credentials. So that was APIs and services credentials. Then I can click in on the individual key that I want to manage. You can set up API restrictions for a specific key. And let's see. Maybe application restrictions.
Does the restrictions, does it restrict it to that specific one or from that specific one?
If you have restrictions, specify which keys can be called, or which APIs can be called. Okay, so I actually don't want these because that's limiting the APIs that are allowed. The application restrictions are what we need to limit it to a specific website to use the key, limit it even more specifically to IP addresses, and then these are obviously mobile app restrictions. Typically, we're just doing none for any sort of plugin or theme, but if you wanted to do HTTP refers, I believe that is restricting it to be used by a certain domain. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Katie, did you have any questions about the key pieces of it, or do you want to look at one of your keys and errors that you're getting and see if we can come up with anything?